Okay. Right, let's see. Hello, everyone. Oh, goodness gracious. What a palaver. I do apologise. I completely, I don't know, technical issues. I really don't know. Oh, dear. Hazel, that's enough. Close the door. Right. Oh, I'm so glad I've got at least a few of you with me. I do apologise. I don't know, why is it that cables just suddenly decide that they're going to stop working? Because my camera works every single time, but I've just had to sort of dig around and swap some cables around, and then the camera decides it's going to work. So it looks like I need to get myself some decent cables and get sorted with that. So, hi Jean, thank you. You can hear me. That's great. So apologies for being late. I mean, I wasn't meant to come on till 2:15 anyway, but it seems like I'm quarter of an hour late. So we'll get going straight into it. Thank you so much for those who have joined me. Right, today I am recreating the card that you see on the side here that Sue Peachy made with the Magnolia Corner. It's a spotlight shaker card, and there was a request for this, but it's a really nice technique actually to be able to show you. Hi Joanne, thanks for joining us. Hi Valerie, hi Jill, and Karen. Karen, you're in Germany, aren't you, if I remember correctly? Yeah, so it's a spotlight card, and there's a couple of different ways you can actually use this technique. We're making it into a shaker card today, which Sue done for us during the week, but it's a really nice sort of style of card. You don't have to make it into a shaker card, and I'll just talk you through those different options as we go through the sort of building of the card. Now what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to try and put some lights on just to lighten this up a little bit. Do you know what? I've had technical issues absolutely all morning, to be honest with you. There we are. Does that look a bit brighter? Yeah, it's a tiny bit brighter. You can at least see the colours that I'm using now. Okay. Right, shall we get going? So, hi Diana from the US, from PA. I'm not quite sure where that is. Lovely to have you here though, and Alex as well. Thank you so much for joining us. So you can also see the items that I'm using on the side, and it is the new release that Lisa launched with us on Hobby Maker. So it's the Magnolia Corner. So it's a lovely set. It's a 6x6 set. We have the layering stencils and we have the 3D embossing folder. We don't have a die with this one. But that's fine, we don't need to use that today. But if you did want to cut this out, it's a really nice sort of bold shape, which once you've embossed it, you'd be easily able to cut around the outline of the flower, and even to highlight different flowers as well. And that's something that I'll be doing with another set, with the gardenia set on Tuesday as well. But today I want to take you through some stenciling, which is great. I haven't done any stenciling for a little bit, and then I'll show you how this lovely card is actually put together. So let's get started. You can see Sue's card on the side there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use slightly different colorways. You can see in the bottom here of the slide the colors that I'm using, but basically everything else will be the same. So I'm just going to move that. I might keep that there for a little while. So if I just move over the colours there, that's the colours that I'm using. Obviously, because we're stenciling, I'm on the Ultimate, and Ultimate 2, I do have the Ultimate one, which has the stamping platform on it, but the Ultimate 2, which is the one that is also available in the US, doesn't have the stamping platform on, and for me doing the lives with you, it just takes up less space on my desk, which is great. So we have the layering stencils. Okay, we have a set of 6 layering stencils in this particular collection. I've started off with a piece of super smooth cardstock. This is Lisa Super Smooth that I'm using. I've already cut this down to size. So stencil 1. I'm going to start off with Tourmaline Blue, which has a really nice little greyish colour on this. You can see that Sue's gone really bold, and the Magnolia looks really rose-like actually when it's done in the yellow, which is really lovely. But I'm going... Oh, I've got tranquil waters there. I've picked up the wrong thing. Dear me. Tourmaline Blue, that's the one I want. I'll just swap over my brushes. Okay, so Tourmaline Blue. I'm going to start with this, with the first layer, and I'm just going to try and emulate sort of whitish petals and add some pink over the top. So this Tourmaline Blue goes down quite grey actually, and I'm just going to put that just around the outside of the main flowers here, leaving the centre white, but that just gives a really nice outline on our flower there. So we just go round the outside. I've not picked up too much ink on my brush, and I take the majority of it off onto the stencil brush there and just push that into the aperture just so as it tips over onto the cardstock there. So once I've got the ink nice and blended and distributed on my brush, then I can just go around the whole flower in a circular motion like that and just make sure that there's a really nice outline going on. And what that does, it just softens the blend in the centre there. So the centre of the flower at this stage still stays white. I'm just going to go a little bit heavier on the bottom edge of the flowers here, and you can use Lisa's packaging as a guide as to where that would be. Now you'll also notice that with the Ultimate, all the designs and all the mat is geared for it to be this way round with the pegs at the top, okay, which depending on the image that you're using, it usually then sort of turns the image on its side like that. So what I like to do, and you'll find this on most of my lives if you're familiar with tuning in, I always turn my Ultimate round, so I have the pegs down the the pegs down the left hand side, so the actual image that I'm stenciling reads the sort of the right way round. For me, that's the way that I find that is easiest for me to use. But say if you want to use the other way around, or maybe if you're left-handed and you want to use it with the pegs on the right hand side, that's perfectly fine as well. It's your tool, and you'll find the way that works best with you. Okay, so we have our base going down there, so you can see we have a nice outline. Basically we're suggesting at this stage whitish petals with like the grey around the outside. So we have stencil number 2, and I'm going to come in with some pink here. So I'm using Loganberry. It's nice that I can use different colours with you and just show you how different colours look on the page. We also have Rhubarb Jam, which is a really nice vibrant pink. We have all the other pink colours as well, which would obviously work. But I've decided I'm going with this one today. So I've picked up some of the Loganberry on my blending brush to start with, and just taken the majority of that off onto the stencil material, and I'm just working that into the centre of the stencil at the moment. So the centre of the stencil where the majority of the detail is, and I'm just working that in circular motions there, so that this stage the majority of the colour is going to sit in the centre of the flower. So as I say, once I've worked off the majority of the ink that is on that brush, then I'm just going to start brushing that out, and so that's how you create that nice sort of airbrush look as we go out to those outer details of the petal there. And we can the ink that we initially blotted off on our stencil material, we can pick up and then start using afterwards, so no ink is wasted at all. And I'm going to do this on both of the flowers. I'm still blotting off on the centre of the flower in this one, but because I've got that that good amount of stencil material in the centre of that flower here, that's why I've started in the centre, and I'm just sort of working out from that. So the centre of the flower is darker than the outside, and you can see how that airbrushes out. And I'm just going to build up that colour. So we have quite a strong colour in the centre, and the outer petal, the outer colour of the petals fades away. So it's going to have a very different look to the one that Sue done. Just to give you a different look, just to show you how the stencil works. And we'll say we all stencil in very different ways. I could have done exactly the same using yellow, but I've chosen sort of greyish blue and pink this time. So I'm just going to excuse me, I'm just going to make sure that that colour is quite bold in the centre there. And I think before I'm excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat now. I think before I move on, I'm just going to highlight a little bit more with the grey just along the bottom of the flower, and just so it's not the grey, it's a tourmaline blue actually, and I'm just highlight those details of those flowers with that tourmaline blue just a little bit more, so it's just probably accentuating the colour that we put in stencil 1. So we've got that there, and in doing this, this grey then blends with the rest of that pink that I've added. So I think that's probably enough. So when I take that away, we've got a really subtle blend, but it's really quite dark in the centre, and we've got that really nice subtle colour as we go out towards the outside of the petals. So we come into stencil 3, so we start adding in the foliage, and I'm using garden sage and woodland moss for the green this time. So this stencil number 3 actually gives us the part of the branch or stem that the flower is attached to. So I'm using the garden sage on that and making that quite dark, and you can see that that's a lovely contrasting colour with the rest of the colours that we've used. Stencil 4, we come in and we start adding in some leaves and the centre of the flowers as well. So the centre of the flowers I'm going to make quite vibrant and use juicy pineapple. So they're going to be yellow. And when I add this colour, and I do this the same with all the centre of all the flowers, I concentrate initially on the bottom of this detail. So we get that area there nice and dark. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. I was hoping I could have my other camera working, but no, the technology gods really wasn't with me today. Why isn't my light on now? Oh, it is a bit slow using that one. Okay, let's turn that up a little bit. Okay, you should be able to see that. So the detail that I'm putting in here, the centre of the flower, I add that colour, or the majority of the colour, on the lower edge of that detail first, and then I use what's left on the brush just to come up and fill in the rest of the aperture there. But it does mean that that detail is a lot darker along the bottom, which is a theme that I followed when I coloured with the blue and the pink. So it keeps a nice continuity of sort of shading, as it were. You don't have to do that. You could have gone block colour all the way through. Say Sue's gone very bold with hers, and it's exactly the same with this. If you wanted to go a complete block colour over all of this, it would look just as beautiful as well. But I think you get used to the way that you stencil as well, and then it sort of happens without you even thinking about it, to be honest. So I always tend to have that little bit of shading going through the images that I'm doing. So now I'm coming in with the woodland moss and I'm adding that into the leaves here. Now the area of the leaves that are nearest the flowers, again I'm going heavier, and as I come out towards the edge or the outer edge of the leaf, I keep that just a little bit lighter. You still put colour in that way, but it always works out just that little bit lighter there. So what I want to do now is going to swap colours. I'm going to swap to the garden sage again, because we have these areas again sitting under the flowers that, if you remember on the previous stencil, we used the garden sage for. So just to keep that all in keeping, I'm using the garden sage on this area here as well, and also in here. And you can, if you're unsure as to what these areas are in the centre, it's always good to refer back to Lisa's packaging where she's given us a full colour image. And even if you're not using the same colour combination, it does give you that reference point. So it just enables you to sort of get your bearings as to what certain areas of the stencils are. Because when you're doing layering stencils like this, some of the shapes can be a little bit abstract and sort of make sense once you've built the whole image up together. So that's why it's always really handy to have Lisa's packaging on hand until you get familiar with a stencil, of course, and that happens usually quite quickly. So I take that away now. You can see those colours coming together, and it really is a lovely image. So stencil number 5, we have more leaves, and I think what I'm going to do, just to make sure that we have that illusion of depth and a little bit of different colours going on, I'm just going to do a really light layer of garden sage on these leaves first, and I'm going to put that quite evenly all the way through. Now I'm doing this really lightly, so it's possible, you can just about see me adding that colour down. Now it is really light, but what it is doing, it's taking away the whiteness. So when I layer woodland moss over the top, it's going to change the shade slightly. So I'm just going to take that away and just show you just how light I did do that layer, which looks really pretty in itself, but that will just change the overall tone of woodland moss now. So I'm going to come in with a woodland moss, and I'm just going to go over those leaves again, and I'm going to blend them in the same way that I did before. As I say, the areas of the leaf closest to the flower I'm going to do slightly darker. And because we've changed the colour that it's sitting on, it's not going onto white directly anymore. This should be enough just to change the tone of this woodland moss. And because Lisa's inks blend beautifully together, it really does enable you to layer different colour combinations. So if you really want to change colours, this is a sort of a nice way to achieve that. And it gets your confidence as well into actually blending inks. And that's possibly why we don't have too many sort of real, grass greens or lots of greens or similar shade of greens in Lisa's ink range. There isn't necessarily a need when you can layer the different colours that we have there. So before I remove this stencil, we have the centre of this flower just to finish off. And I think I'm going to come in with a Loganberry. So this is going to sit on top of the yellow centre. I've just checked what I had on top of my brush first before I came in, before I added any extra ink. So I just picked up a little bit more, and I'm just going to build that up slowly. Just pick up a little bit more again and just add that into the centre of the flower. So when I take that away, you should be able to see there is a slight or a very subtle difference in the greens there. It just adds depth to the image even before we've embossed it. And it's if you look out in nature as well, not all leaves are always the same colour, are they, even on the one plant? So it just adds a nice little bit of interest. Again, if you didn't have other colours, to go straight across with all of the leaves would woodland moss or whichever green you have would be perfect. You can just perhaps change the amount of ink you put on each time. That would work, and that would give you that illusion of depth. Or if you wanted to go completely bold and do exactly the same amount of ink on all of the foliage, again, that would work. It really is enables you to be an artist with these stencils. Really, you make your choice, and I think the more that you stencil with Lisa's stencils and get used to the inks that you like to use, you'll start taking those little steps, and that confidence will grow. So what I'm doing now, this is the last stencil, stencil number 6, and this is all of the detail onto the flower. And I am going round, and where I can see all the green areas underneath the stencil, I am adding those details in green. Okay, so that will be all the leafy areas, of course. And just make sure that I go around all of those areas and pick out that detail. And then I'm going to swap to my pink brush, the Loganberry, pick up some ink, and then I'm just going to go around all the areas that are showing pink under the stencil. I'm going to go around with my pink detail and add the pink into those areas. Now it's very easy to see through the stencils, so you can see where you've added the different colours. So if you wanted to do this and pick out those different colours with these details, then say it's very straightforward to do that. Again, I'm just not adding too much ink. I don't want these details to really jump out at me. I just want them to be subtle, but it really does make a huge difference once we've added them. And then just before we move on, I'm going to come in, finish off with the Tourmaline blue on all of the other areas there. And there will be an element of blending as I blend over the grey areas into the pink, very much like we done on the earlier layers of the stencils. Let's put your chat up there as well. Hi everybody. Who's that? Oh, don't worry, Gloria, about being late. I was terribly late today. Oh dear, I was cursing my camera. I really was. It's just nice to be back and being able to stencil with you. So thanks so much for joining me. Of course, this will be available to watch on YouTube for you to catch up with the beginning, and you can watch in your own time. Stop and start the video or move forward to the areas of interest to you. So never worry about being late or missing anything. Okay, so I think I've covered all the areas there with all the different colours. So that's our 6 stencils complete. And you can see there, just adding those final details on top of some of the, the easy shading that we've done. It really does lend to a beautiful image. I'll just show you that there. I've got a shadow of one of my cables there. Yeah, I didn't have time to readjust everything. Hopefully that's not getting in the way too much. I won't bother them in case we go off again. Okay, so there's our image there. So in type, exactly the same stencils I've used, but it looks so different to what Sue has done, isn't it? And I love the yellow of what Sue's done. And I think possibly she's layered some orange into that as well, or even some of the browny colours as well. But the brown layers really nice, and shades yellow really, really lovely as well. So that would be perhaps something you could try. Okay, so let's move away my board. I'm going to put my lids in there so we don't risk getting any extra ink in places that we don't want. Okay, so what we need to do now, we need to think about actually layering up and creating the card. So I've already stenciled this image. So what I would do, I would cut this down to size and I would put this through the embossing folder, and this actually is ready to sit there and make another card for me. So I could use the image as it is, or I could do it in make a card in exactly the same way as I'm going to do for you now. But to make the spotlight card, let's say there's a couple of different ways of doing this and actually creating different images. And I have done spotlight cards in the past, and I've done them with apertures, and they've come out looking different every time. So it really is a nice technique to use. Basically what you're doing, you're using nesting dies to highlight a particular area or areas of the design that you've stenciled. So for this one, I'm using circles. You can use any nesting dies. You can use triangles, rectangles. It depends on what figures, on what your image is and sort of the final project that you want to create. So I'm using the nested, scalloped and plain circles. I've used the plainer of the dies, the ones that aren't scalloped, but they do have the stitched edge, which I think is really smart. So I've used 3 dies. Well, Sue has used 3 dies, and I've used them in exactly the same way she has actually. And before I even think about embossing, I have used the dies and placed them on the areas that I want to highlight, like so. You can highlight the centre of the flower. You could you can use a bigger circle and highlight just the centre, like so. And I think what was clever with what Sue has done, you've gone for smaller circles because we are adding the shaker element to this as well. So what you could do is, say you can use a bigger circle, but say Sue has used 3 smaller circles. You can use 3, you can use 2. We could have just highlighted 1, so it's entirely up to you. But I think Sue's done it perfectly. So basically I've done exactly what she did. She's inspired me fully. So why change something that works perfectly, is what I say. So I've die cut those. Now, if you want to go ahead and emboss, this would be the time to do it. You don't have to. And quite often I do a lot of stenciling and I forget to emboss, and that's mainly because I forget. My brain is working too quick, and especially when I'm talking to you. But I will emboss this now. And again, you've got choices here. You can choose to emboss this entire image. You can choose to emboss this just the outside and leave the bottom areas plain as well. So it's entirely up to you. You can still match up the design on your stencil, like so. I will emboss. Actually, I'm going to leave those free, actually, because with glitter and things sitting underneath, I think they'll just sit nicely, and that just gives you that extra detail on the spotlight. But you can still, there's enough detail on here to line up in your embossing folder. So I'm just going to take that now. So just a second. Get myself a piece of card as well. Okay, so we can see here now the beauty of these embossing folders, along with their stencils, is that you don't stencil the outside here. So once you have stenciled and then you come to emboss, you have all of that extra detail which just enhances what you've stenciled. So as I replace those back into there, like so, and lift that up to you, hopefully you will see. It's really hard to catch. Let's see if I can just move the light. You see we have all of this extra, there we are, I just nearly caught that there. There you go. We have all of this extra detail on the outside which we didn't stencil. So it really does just increase the beauty of what you've stenciled. I think it's really, really clever. It's such a simple idea, but it really, really does work. And actually you can see the difference with the spotlight areas there that we haven't embossed. They really stand out against the areas that we have embossed. So that is one way that you can use the spotlight technique. I'm just going to score my card. My camera not working earlier on just threw me out completely. Oh. So I have my 6x6 card blank there. Now, what you could do if you didn't want to make a shaker card, but you still wanted to make the spotlight card, there's one of two ways you could do this. You could put your backing straight onto your card blank, and then you can add foam pads behind these spotlight areas and add them to the design. These will be raised, so therefore spotlighting the different areas of your design. And I think that would work really nicely if you decide to choose just one of the dies, one circle die to spotlight like so. I think that would work really nicely, perhaps in the centre of the flower. Alternatively, you could do the same again before we even think about going to a shaker card. You can position those spotlight areas that you die cut onto your card blank, attach them down as they are, flat to your card blank, and then you could add foam pads to this area and layer that on top of your positioned circles like so. So you have a dimensional card, but the foreground or the raised area is the embossed area, and then you have the spotlight areas sunken into the design. And I think that works really nicely as well, especially with the multiple circles. And say, if you are highlighting a particular part of the flower or a leaf or whichever design you're doing, that's a really nice way to use the spotlight technique as well. But what Sue's done, she's added the extra level, and we've gone to a shaker card. Now, what you'd need to do, you cut your spotlight out, you then position let's take this away, position your main layer on your card blank, and just keep that in position at the moment. You can even just gently tack that into place, because what you don't want is for this to move too much at this stage. So get yourself another little bit of tape here. So I'm just going to tack those into place, because that is where my finished layer is going to end up being attached to the card blank. And then we want to attach these spotlights directly to our card blank. So this is now where we can use our glue. I'm just making sure I've got the right order for this. I do believe we have. And my glue isn't working. Okay, so we can attach our, there we go, our spotlight areas. Now it's important that we have this top layer as the reference, of course, to know how to position those spotlight areas perfectly underneath, so they fit the design. There'd be some designs you'll be able to do this where it doesn't matter how you place these spotlight circles or cutouts, but when you're stenciling something like this, I think it's nice. It just makes sense, doesn't it, to have the flower complete underneath. So it's basically like fitting those back in like a puzzle. Okay. Now those are put into place, we can take our layer away. Now we need to change this layer into a layer ready for a shaker card. So what we need to do, we need to get a piece of acetate. Make sure that you've removed the protective film from both sides. I've forgotten I've left the protective film on the inside, but I did take it away from the outside. And I've already prepared the foam underneath. So I'm going to take that on the reverse. We want to obviously put the acetate onto the reverse of our layer there, so we can only see it through the apertures. Okay. I only have foam pads that are square, so I had to put them all on individually. So I just took a little bit of time before I came to lay those down. And I know that they're all in the right place. So before I continue and take off those pads, I'm going to glue my acetate in place, and I'm just going to go around where the apertures are there, just to make sure that we have a good secure join. Now, you would secure your acetate down before you add your foam pads. So I've added an extra step for myself here, just to make it a little bit easier and a little bit quicker for you to watch. So I'm just making sure that where I've added the pads, I've left, I'm just lining those up right. So it'd be a lot easier for you to add the acetate directly to the back of your design, like so. So what I can do now, I can start taking away, hopefully this won't take too long. I can take away these layers, and you'll see that as I've gone round to add my square pads here, I've made sure that they all sit really close to each other. And because they're foam pads, obviously they're squidgy, you can really make sure you get really nice contact between each pad and its neighbour. Because if you're using a small glitter for your shaker elements, then it's going to escape through any gap. So the other thing to do, you can get foam adhesive like this on a roll, and that can actually be a lot easier to use as well, particularly if you're creating a square aperture. So if you can just bear with me, I'll just get all of these taken off. And then what it will do, actually, once I've taken all of these off, not the easiest thing to do when you're trying to go quick. Okay. It would help if you had nails as well, actually. You could actually grab hold of them a lot easier. So you'll see that as I'm taking these off, and you can actually see the form of the foam pads themselves, I've had to cut some of them in half to go through the slimmer areas. Let's use tweezers for this one. There we go. Okay. It wasn't too painful, was it? Okay, so you can see that I've made a really nice seal all the way around. Hopefully there'll be nothing escaping, but I am going to use more of a chunkier glitter. Now I do have a bit of a gap here. I just wanted to leave just one there, and I'll just show you just to how we can just manipulate these foam pads just to fit into those areas that we really want to seal. So I'm just going to make sure that that really fits into there. So the foam pads are actually quite forgiving. Oh. If I just use that to sit in there, that's going to make a really tight seal. There we are. So we've closed that up now. So now we have 3 contained areas that we can add our glitter. Now, before I add the glitter, and what I'm using actually is the mermaid tails. If you've been with Lisa from the start, you'll remember these. But basically, this is a chunky glitter with sort of mica flakes and things in it. Looking at what Sue's used, she's used sequins, which would be a really nice thing to use because they're chunkier actually, and they have less static sitting against the acetate. But to overcome the static that I'm going to get on mine, I'm just going to get one of Lisa's static pads and use this for clear embossing and stamping. And I'm just going to add a little bit of in there. It's basically a powder. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put some of the powder onto a clear thing there, and you can just about see it there. Basically, what you want to do is just pick up some of that powder. Talcum powder would work, and I'm going to pick that up with a paintbrush, and I'm just going to dust that on the inside. That's going to be more than enough to stop the the static, but it's also not going to make the acetate too cloudy, because that you don't want to put too much anti-static or too much of this powder down, and then you cloud the acetate and you can't see the design. What you can do, you can actually brush this along the edge or the inside edge of the foam pads, and it just means also that a lot of the shaker elements won't be sticking to the foam pads around the outside, and it should move freely. So I'm just going to paint that in there, so make sure none of that is going to move. Move that to one side. Now what I do need to get okie doke. Right, how am I going to do this? Well, I need to get another piece of acetate. So what I need to do now, you fill in just with a little bit of the glitter into these areas your shaker elements. Try not to get them sitting on top of the foam pads, because that will stop the adhesion of the foam pads, if you get my meaning. What you don't want is to affect sort of the stickiness of these foam pads. You still need a nice adhesion there. So I'm just going to use a little spatula just to put those in on the inside, like so. Now this mica does get everywhere, so I'm going to put that to one side. Now what we need to do, we need to get this to match up to our spotlight images here. What I'm going to do actually is going to use another piece of acetate, and hopefully I've got another clear piece. And I'm just going to cut this down to size so it fits that area of the foam pads, like so. So the cutting doesn't need to be precise, but does need to be the right size. I'll cut that down so it's going to be wide enough, and I just need to take a little bit off the edge, like so. So that's going to give me a nice seal. And I will remember this time to peel off the protective layer. Which, if you can just scuff the corners a little bit, you can see that it comes away. There we go, and it just peels off like that. And then you can see actually how beautifully clear this acetate is. So I'm going to take away that, and I can just layer this onto the top like so. And you can see actually already that there's a tiny bit of static going on. I should have just used the static pad there along that piece of acetate before I put that down. but we've got a nice seal. Make sure there's a nice seal around all of your foam pads, because we don't want that glitter to escape. And then what we can do, we have our shaker element, and you can see it's clear. And now we can add this to our base card. Now what we want to do is add we add the glue around this second piece of acetate. Around where the apertures are going. And then, excuse my head just a little bit, we'll just line that up so the spotlight circles underneath correspond to the area that is sitting on top. Now mine is going to look a little bit cloudy because I forgot to take the protective layer off of one of my acetate sheets, but if you would remember to do that, it would look perfectly clear and your stenciled image underneath would really shine through. But that gives you your shaker element with your spotlight image. Now, as I say, my areas look a little bit darker than what Sue's do, so purely because I forgot to take off that protective layer. But you can see the way that works there. You've got all sorts going on. I've used, say, mermaid tails. There's a little bit of static going on underneath as well, so there is glitter sort of sitting in the image, but that can actually enhance your image as well, and it's a really nice, makes a super special card. Now I've got some sentiment stickers that we can add on there. You could have, of course, used the tall and skinny alphabet dies that Lisa launched with us a little while ago, or any of the sentiment dies that we have. I have one that's sitting from there. That would work really well. That's nice and blue. Or we got some stamps. And say it really is just something just to finish that off with a sentiment like there. And I think I'll just put congratulations. Actually, I'll put that in there. Something nice and bold, just to finish that off. Hello, Wilma from Canada. Lovely to have you here. You wish they were easier to get hold of. I'm sure there are some shops. I think there's a list in the Crafting with Lisa Horton group. There's a list of where you can buy them from, and also on Lisa's website as well. And I know she does ship to Canada as well. Hi, Maura from California. What acetate did I use? I use Lisa's acetate. It's actually a Christmas pack. It comes with 3 designs. We have the snow design here. We have a polka dot design here. We also have the clear. I'm not sure if it's on the website at the moment. I forgot to check, but it's a really lovely weight acetate, and it comes in a nice usable size of A5 as well. We can acetate and craft. Yeah, that's a good idea. I do tend to keep acetate from other bits of packaging as well, so that's a really nice way to do it. Say thanks to Sue for actually coming up with this idea. It's so pretty. You get the opportunity to stencil and create a really nice special card with lots of different techniques on it as well. Let's have a see. Hi, Lisa. It looks like Lisa's here. I didn't see her pop in there. Oh, hello, Star from Canada as well. Lots of Canadian viewers today. That's lovely. Thanks so much for joining me. I know it's a little bit late to start with, but this will be available to watch on YouTube. It will be sitting there under the live heading. If you just look along the top of our YouTube channel, you have like videos, you have the playlist, and you have the live section as well. So this card will be sitting there, as will all of my lives and all of Cheryl's lives and Lisa's lives as well. They're all available to catch up on it, and you can watch them at your own leisure as well. So I shall leave that with you there today. I know it's been a busy week for lives, and I think Lisa is back with us tomorrow for Friday Night Live, or she'll be back in the studio. I'll be back with you on Tuesday. I'll be doing another of the design team members' cards. Valerie's card, which I believe was a card made using the Gardenia set, which is a new release, and also the anthracite ink. I'm just trying to sit. I can't remember where I put it now. I think I tidied it away. So yeah, I should be back on Tuesday to do that with you as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. I really like shading with the anthracite ink. So thanks so much for joining me today. Enjoy your weekend, everybody, and I shall see you soon.